right, good morning. That was a preparatory command. Good morning. All right, great. Hey, welcome to the final theater session here in the Readiness and Resilience Theater for today. I want to thank you all for, the stick-to-itness, being here for the last session. We've got a great session here that's entitled Posturing and Building Resilience for the Operational Environment. And we've got our Colonel Kevin Stepp from 1MEF, the G6, Assistant Chief of Staff, G6 for the 1MEF, that's going to lead this panel here. And I'm going to turn it over to him so we can get right down to business. So, Kevin?
Hey, good morning, everybody. Hey, welcome to the panel discussion of 1st Marine Expeditionary Force and Marine Corps Installations West, Assistant Chief of Staff, G6s. As Mike mentioned, today's panel will be on posturing and building resilience for the operational environment. And during this panel, we'd like to introduce to you the present challenges and opportunities of the environment, how we're posturing our formations, the MEF and each of the MSCs, to engage competition and conflict, and how we like to more closely partner with industry to meet those challenges. Today, we have the privilege of speaking with a panel of experts. Combined experiences, more than 100 years of leadership and professional experience leading communications formations, shaping persistent modernization efforts, and tailoring their assigned missions to the operational environment. First to my left, introduce to you Colonel Mike Anthony, ACS G6, 1st Marine Division. Mike Anthony has served in all 3 Marine Expeditionary Forces, and he's served in every element of the Marine Air Ground Task Force, as well as serving in Marine Forces Special Operations Command. Mike's deployed numerous times for Marine and Joint formations. Prior to assuming duties as the 1st Marine Division G6, Colonel Anthony served as a Commandant Marine Corps Fellow to the MIT Lincoln Lab. Welcome, Mike Anthony. To Mike's left is Lieutenant Colonel Alan Pollard, ACS G6, 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing. Lieutenant Colonel Pollard has extensive experience serving in the Western Pacific, serving more than 15 years in forces assigned to and supporting the U.S. Indo-PACOM area of responsibilities, to include 7th Marines, BLT-27, 31st MU, supporting numerous exercises in the Western Pacific, McTOG, and 1MEF. Prior to Lieutenant Colonel Pollard's current assignment, Alan served as the Operations Officer, 1 Marine Expeditionary Force G6, and as a Joint Task Force Philippines J6. Welcome, Lieutenant Colonel Pollard. Thank you. To Alan's left is Lieutenant Colonel Maria Harley, ACS G6, 1st Marine Logistics Group. Lieutenant Colonel Harley has also served in all 3 Marine Expeditionary Forces and every element of the MAGTF, and has commanded at every rank. While assigned to Marine Wing Support Squadron 274, she deployed in support of Operation Enduring Freedom, and then again in support of Special Purpose MAGTF, Southern Partnership Station, Amphibious. Prior to her current assignment at the 1st Marine Logistics Group, Lieutenant Colonel Harley served as the Deputy ACS G6 to 1st Marine Division, and this summer, Lieutenant Colonel Maria Harley will assume command of 7th Communications Battalion, 3 MiG, 3 MEF. Welcome, Maria.
Thanks, sir.
And to Maria's left is Lieutenant Colonel David Becker, ACS G6, MCI West. Lieutenant Colonel David Becker has served in a variety of billets in the operating forces and at the MAR-4 and joint level. A few of these assignments include Battalion Communications Officer, BLT-21, S6, 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit, Cyber Fires Officer, Cyberspace Panner, and Deputy G35, U.S. Marine Corps Forces Cyber Command, Assistant Chief of Staff G6, 2nd Marine Logistics Group, and numerous deployments to include Operation Enduring Freedom, Special Purpose MAGTF Crisis Response Africa, and prior to his current assignment, Lieutenant Colonel Becker served as the ACS 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing. Thank you all for joining us today, and we'll dive right into our panel. Colonel Anthony, starting with you. Can you describe for the group the C4 or C2 operational challenges in 1st Marine Division, and if related, what might be one digital modernization effort you're pursuing to posture your organization for the current environment?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for having us here on the panel. Colonel Stepp, thanks for your leadership and moderation. What are you doing? Whatever you're doing to us, right? Had to make you laugh, right?
Standing here looking good.
No, you're looking fantastic. Hey, so within the Blue Diamond, 1st Marine Division, we recognize that there are three things that we got to look at when we're looking at warfighting. Is it the data? Is it the network? Or is it spectrum? So when I think about those three things, I need solutions to overcome all of them. And they're not disparate or not related. They're all integrated, and they're all problem sets. So in our formation, I must ensure Major General Savage has the ability to see to the division regardless of its assigned mission. One mission that General Savage has told us to look at is if the division serves as a MEF forward. Another one can be as as he being the commander of the landing forces. And then the other one is the GCE within the MACTF. Clearly, that's our defined mission. But when I look at those are three unique challenges that we have to figure out how do we exercise C2? How does he exercise C2? How do I enable it? And then how do his subordinate commanders ensure that they can operate ubiquitously, right? Or wherever we're at. So when I think about that, I look at our regiments. So we have 1st Marine Regiment, 5th Marine Regiment, 7th Marine Regiment as our infantry, and then our artillery regiment as the 11th Marine Regiment. So as they are distributed across the battlefield, and you think about how complex that is when you look at where they may land up, if it's in the Pacific, and you're on various different islands, how do I ensure that, again, the three things that I talked about earlier, is it the spectrum, is it the network, or is it the data? Like, how do we ensure that we do that? So I think some of our current our current tools, like C2PC as the tool that we use for our COP, some people like it, some people don't. You know, if you ask some vendors, they'll say, hey, this is a great tool. You ask some operators, they'll be like, hey, it's kind of antiquated. At the end of the day, I need to be able to ensure that General Savage can communicate down into the formation and then up to higher headquarters through the MEF, through the MAR4, through this, depending on, again, any of the three, if we're a landing force component, if we're part of the GCE, or if we're MEF forward. Like, we have to be able to figure out where we're going to integrate in that. So we got to go up to our COCOM level and ensure that our tools come. I think that where industry could help us in that is when you bring us tools, and let's use the COP tool as an example, how does that go from that infantry unit, that tactical battalion, from that level all the way up through the division, through the regiment, up to the MEF, and then continue to go up through the COCOM. So that's probably our greatest challenge.
Colonel Anthony, thank you. Lieutenant Colonel Pollard, unique to aviation, it's an inherently joint enterprise. And we have aviation forces already postured west of the international date line, something Lieutenant General Cedarholmes talked about during the conference. What C4 challenges does your team deal with routinely in the near term? And what digital modernization efforts are you working toward in 3MA?
All right, thank you, sir, and everyone for being here. Alan Pollard, working for Major General Wellens, he's provided a unique view for us at the MAW to ensure aircraft readiness and posturing in the Pacific. So 3rd MAW right now has a stand-in force in the Philippines with a 24/7 mission to provide surveillance within the Indo-PACOM theater. That's kept us on our toes the most for the past several months that I've been at MAW, and then when it was being stood up when I was in 1 MEF G6 last year. And having that reliability in that forward deployed node that doesn't have an established permanent infrastructure leveraging the Philippine infrastructure has definitely been a unique challenge for us. But let me take a step back and from a MAW perspective of what Colonel Anthony was talking about is that the two problems that the two challenges that I have as the G6 is to make sure that we're able to connect to our JTF COP. Okay, so whatever, if that is the the MEF, or if it's an Army unit, okay? But almost more importantly is being able to connect to the theater JFAC and provide that air picture so we can able to integrate with the air tasking order. So when we're operating in the Indo-Pacific, that is with PACAF in the 613th Air Operations Center, AOC in Hawaii. And so there's programs or records to run that, but it doesn't solve challenges as we're trying to maneuver tactical units and to make sure that POR is able to establish. Right now, it's CAC-2S is the COP that the wing uses for that direct integration of the air picture, and we are dependent on integrating our network, okay, in Spectrum with the data that Colonel Anthony was talking about with the different communities to make sure that our commanding general is able to execute. Some of the problems that we run into is just a numbers game, okay? Is the equipment and personnel that we used to have, we don't have anymore, and as much is consolidated within Marine Air Control Group 38, specifically within Marine Wing Communications Squadron 38. And you know, since one MEF has taken on a bigger role in the Indo-Pacific, that peanut butter is being spread very, very thin. Especially when when one MEF units are operating, more units are operating more frequently west of the IDL. So we've tried to solve that problem through O&M funds, through commercial spectrum using cellular and commercial internet providers, and then using small form factors to be able to pull in nipper and sipper unclassified data. But I don't think that's enough. I think we need to be making sure that we move forward to, one, these become program of record so we're sustainable, and then we don't rely on the current spectrum and TTPs that we've been using for the past 3 to 4 years, and we need to continue to develop and innovate different transport means to keep the enemy guessing on our heels and making sure that we have transport diversity moving forward.
Thanks, Alan. Lieutenant Colonel Harley, over to you. C4, C2 operational challenge, and what does digital modernization look like in 1st MLG?
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for having us, or thanks for being the moderator for us today. I think despite several efforts across the enterprise, we at the MLG and I'll say all LCE element lack a standardized and agreed upon logistics common operational picture. In a world today where Amazon, you can track your package showing up to your doorstep, what street it's on and exactly when it's going to be there, we've become accustomed to immediate necessary information. The same level of transparency, should apply to tracking our personnel and supplies, including in-transit visibility and receipt verification. So this is where logisticians and communicators need to collaborate. While the log cop we primarily will be used by the G3 and G4, so the operations and logistics, communicators need to be in part of this data-driven environment to lay the groundwork for its application. Recently, 1st MLG utilized, during our service level exercise, Steel Night 24, the Visual Integrated Tactical Logistics plugin for the TAC application. By employing these tools, we aim to modernize our COC operations and provide valuable feedback to the data scientists and engineers working on the log cop problem. Whether it's through Vital or another solution, 1st MLG aspires to be the key stakeholders in driving this change.
Thanks, Lieutenant Colonel Harley. Lieutenant Colonel Becker, can you, I find my notes here, man, sorry. Can you talk about the operational challenge from fighting from home plate, kind of the change we have there, from base posts and stations, and what digital modernization efforts you're leading and working towards with your team?
Yes, sir, and again, thank you for the opportunity. Home plate is a demanding task from the MEF commander, but it's one worthy of all of our efforts. It's a change in mindset. So base and station is always there to do force projection, right? That's our mission and our support to the operating forces that we host. Home plate is yet another aggressive task that, like I said, is worthy of our efforts. I'd say that one thing to this group, if you're not familiar with McPP, right, then you're not familiar with how the Marines plan, right? So I encourage you to look at that. We're looking at wicked problems, and problem framing is a very important thing, right? Because if we don't do a good job problem framing, you can't come up with possible solutions to those problems, right? So we need to make sure we're asking the right question. And oh, by the way, things change all the time. So part of McPP, one of the most important parts is reframing when conditions change. So this is an example of we had a mission, we're doing it, and now conditions are changing. So we need to reframe in a resource-limited environment, right? So we've got priorities allow us to stay focused on the most important thing when we have limited resources, okay? And that's where industry comes into play. We know where we are now. We know where we want to be. It's the operational design, again, a Marine Corps and an Army term, that has to be the plan to get us there. There needs to be more discussion about how to get there. And I'll give an example. A lot of people talk about, okay, we're at A, and people arguing what B should be. Should we do B or C? Well, I would argue we should do A, B, C, and D. And that's the operational design. It's not one or the other. It has to be looked at across the time continuum of what's the priority now and how does that enable us to get to our end state. There's a lot of discussions about should we take this path or this path. And again, that's worth our discovery, but we really need to look at it holistically, and that's what industry is going to help us do with your expertise and leveraging that. So an example of that, you hear a lot in the stage is even named, right? Resiliency, right? Resiliency, okay? It's important, but what does it mean? To me, as a tactical communicator in the past, it was having 3 ways to win. If our plan is for our current plan to work, we have a horrible plan. It's not resilient. There's a thinking enemy, and things are constantly changing. So again, when you hear the term maneuver through cyberspace, we have to sense, adjust, and reattack, reprioritize. That's what maneuvering is. We have to have our eyes wide open, and that's all these things out here, this entire stage and boost and all this is supposed to enable the commander to make better, timely decisions. And if you're able to do that with whatever your functional lane is, then you're being value added to the commander's demands. So that's what we're staying focused on. An example of that is leveraging not just a single local exchange carrier out through Oceanside, but now we're going through San Clemente and Oceanside. Again, different ways to win, more resilient, and one of the driving factors is the MEF and their fight tonight requirement. Make no mistake about it, that's what they're on the hook to do every single day, is to fight tonight, not in 27, tonight. So we have to not only support the current fight, but build and also enable the future fight. And that's the challenge, because we can't just shut it all down and come up in 2 years and say, hey, we got the perfect plan, right? So change management is probably the most important and challenging thing we have from a base and station, because we have very long time frames. You're all familiar with how long it takes to build something, MILCON, right? The answer is 7 to 10 years, and it's supposed to last for 40. Okay, the things just changed in 6 months, right? So again, our responsiveness of making sure that we not only have the problem statement correct, but that we aggressively reframe is I think, our bid for success. And being a good mission partner with the MEF and a host on base and station, that's what we're endeavoring to do. So specific actions, I think, are all centered around resiliency and making sure that we can reframe and support the local threat, the current threat, as well as plan for the future simultaneously.
Yeah, Dave, thanks for your comments. I think part of that reframing that you mentioned is that transition from being a platform from which we launch to be a platform from which we fight, and not just a node, but you spoke to it, a means of maneuver for base post and station. So thanks. We look forward to talking more in a sec here. Lieutenant Colonel Harley, you mentioned vital. I know you've done some work with information systems and hardware implementation, some unique software use cases we've talked about. What are some of the promising technologies that's enabling First Marine Logistics Group?
So I'll stick with the vital theme when it comes to the COP. That's our CG's number one priority when it comes to G6. I checked in and he said, Maria, we need a log COP. Like, cool, sir, I'll make it happen. So Vital is run by INL. They do utilizing engineers and scientists from ONR. And they're harnessing a variety of technologies in order to make it effective use for us, right? Part of the development of what they're doing is AI and ML, right? A little bit of buzzwords, but also they enable us to collect critical data from diverse sources, right? So we're able, they're working towards, I should say, collecting data from logistic vehicles, supply chain management systems, and even some wearables on Marines. These systems would be able to push updated data to the COP in real time without manual input, which is what the MLG, a lot of what we do is just manual input into spreadsheets and stuff, right? So AI and ML is we're a huge fan. It reduces the human error and ensures that the decision makers have the most accurate information at their disposal. By integrating multiple sources of data, right? Satellite imagery, drone surveillance, sensor feeds, weather condition, communications from the ground units into a centralized system, commanders get a more complete, up-to-the-minute picture of the operational environment. So real-time updates ensure that the COP reflects the latest information about enemy movements, logistic needs, terrain conditions, potential threats, and it informs the commander to make better decisions. By leveraging these cutting-edge technologies, Vital will revolutionize, the way data is collected and utilized within the operation. The integration of AI and ML systems and real-time updates ensure the commanders have the access to the most up-to-date information, empowering them to make informed decisions swiftly. This modernization not only reduces human error, but also provides a comprehensive review of the operational environment, ultimately enhancing mission success. With these advancements, Vital stands at the forefront of transforming the military logistics and command operations for the better.
Thanks, Maria. And I think what resonates is, at least across all the panel today, is the transition from the C4 people being transmissions to the move towards information systems, kind of back to the future, right? Communications and information systems. And then also, the AI, what it's doing for the MLG is giving your Marines capacity, right? You're letting the compute do some of the low-level human work while you can have your Marines do the problems that require their exquisite attention. So thanks for speaking to that. Lieutenant Colonel Pollard, you talked about not just the operational environment, but the joint environment and the increasing complexities, the need for persistence and network presence forward. What steps is 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing taking to posture its comms and IT infrastructure for greater resilience? And how do you plan to ensure mission continuity in the face of potential disruptions?
Yes, sir. Yeah, so definitely a theme about services, common operational picture from different aspects and perspectives of the MAGTAFs. Again, just going back of who does the wing need to talk to, and it's against at JTF headquarters in that theater JFAC for that air command and control. And then from there, the focus is on the squadrons being able to fly, and the aviation ground support being able to enable those operations. So the MAOC is the center of focus. So with those priorities laid out, I'd like to shift over to our Western Indo-Pacific problem that we have in posturing our IT infrastructure. When I was a lieutenant, I did Balikatan in the Philippines. Okay, I've been back several times, and I was just there last year. Okay, and there's been minimal investment into that specific region. USERPAC was the first to have a permanent node in there using a ATT provisioned circuit, still commercial, and then quickly followed by the wing with our VMU-1 mission out there outside of the Clark Air Base. To me, that is not properly posturing the Pacific, all right? And so if we want to be able to enable the COP, we still need to have those lines of communications. We have a lot of transport diversity moving forward. You know, we have PORs, okay, that using Milsat. We have Comstat that's being able to support us. Satcom as a managed service is a big thing that's been proliferated for several years. But being back out in the Philippines, one of the things that I think that we're failing to posture is we need to pivot to intra-theater communications, okay? And we shouldn't be reliant on our nodes and systems to reach back all the way to a network operations center, whether it's DoD or commercially controlled, to be able to exchange unclassified up to TS communications. There should be a focus on our combat systems and what they need to be able to talk to. So I'll pick on the Philippines, but within the Philippines, we should be able to have that sensor to decision making to shooter all within the intra-theater communications. And the communicators need to be investing in that architecture to be able to do so and still have that proper pace plan to be able to support our commander for that flow, okay? It's simple as, you know, hey, how do we invest in the fiber infrastructure out there? But I would also like to call out the great work that Control Group 38 specifically being executed by Marine Wing Communications Squadron 38 working with our testing lab in the Marine Corps, MCTISA, to make sure that we're investing in edge computing capabilities, leveraging cloud, and they're doing that time now. And I look forward to what they're able to do in the near future for our summer series exercises, executing west of the IDL, and the after actions that they're going to bring back that's going to propel the Marine Corps for the future fight.
Thanks, Lieutenant Colonel Pollard. And for the group, we got two more opening questions here, then we'll transition to the group for discussion. Colonel Anthony, during your comments, you talked about kind of C4 framework, data and networking, but then also the transport mechanism, kind of the transport of the network and transport via spectrum. How does that integrate when you envision light infantry units conducting C2 in future conflicts?
Thanks. That's a great question. So many of you know that both Commandant Berger and Commandant Smith.
It says it's on.
Got it green.
You want to come here, Mike? Hey, Mike, you want to stand here?
Can you hear me now? All right, there we go. All right. Hey, sorry about that. Great question. Many of you are aware that Commandant Smith and Commandant Berger both started with the infantry experimental battalions, right? So currently, Victor 3-4 has the IBX mission. So when you think about where they sit in the spectrum and where they sit as far as executing our nation's business, and then their ability to see to that force. So where does that really lie? Or what's the difference between that and Victor 1-1 as an example? So 1st Battalion, 1st Marines. So Victor 3-4 has a 5-node construct. So that's the Alpha Command, the Bravo Command. Many of you know like the main or forward or main or jump, right? So you got Alpha and Bravo Command, and then 3 company C2 nodes. So those 5 elements, how do you do that? Like that's extremely hard. But I think our community's done a lot of good work under Colonel Phillips' leadership over at MCCES. What he's done is he's instituted the Expeditionary Communicators course to ensure that your standard radio operator, your standard data operator, your standard networking Marine has integrated, like you can send that 1 Marine or 2 Marines to go and run a company node or company fob. That's not new to some of us who's played around in a soft world, be it MARSOC or the other tiered units. You know that that's kind of the requirement, right? So I think that shift is happening there. So when you think about, you know, how do you set the force to do what it needs to do? So I got Victor 3-4, who's over UDP'd right now in Okinawa, and they're that third Marine Divisions, like they're executing all of their exercises and all their missions, and they're called and they're ready to go. So as they think about, you know, what systems or tools do they have? So I think I have a different approach to where how we use the cloud. I am not anti-cloud. When Colonel Sepp introduced, he said my last assignment was at MIT Lincoln Lab. So I absolutely like technology. I'm all for it. But there is a balance in where that maneuver unit and the tactical formation's going, I don't want to emanate except when I want to emanate. So if I'm solely relying on a cloud, I have to change, and I have to make sure I have organic or on-prem services that I can continue to see to that force. And I don't think many people are arguing against that, but there's a balance in how we do it. So I want to come up on a cloud or go to reachback services on a time and place of my choosing, not when others want me to. Why? Because that's how I think I get that added advantage when we're fighting and we're close with and destroying. So again, from a tactical level, what do I do? Close with and destroy the enemy by fire and maneuver in close combat, right? So like that's what the infantry formation does. So I think we will balance commander's intent, mission command, and then being able to use that force of presence. So I am all for larger systems. The MEF has been super helpful in getting us to what our COCOM has told us that we're going to do, using a host of new COP tools, but there's a balance in how I integrate that at the tactical and in the infantry unit. Over.
Yeah, and really the integration of delivering the right service, but via the right transport for the formation, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, and I'll close
Yeah.
with this one to that point. I'm open to, like, single channel radios, the RTO, or radio telephone operator, like, that absolutely still exists. So if you go back to World War II, you got the Marine with this, Prick 77 or any older one, so now we call them Prick 163. So we're still gonna keep our radios. I also wanna be able to use 5G technologies, or cell phones, or ATAC systems. So absolutely, I'm gonna use any and everything I can so that I, at a time and place of my choosing, close with and destroy the enemy.
Awesome, thank you. Lieutenant Colonel Becker, can you talk about your past experience? You referenced earlier design, redesign, reframe, but your experiences as an MSC G6 division, MAW, MLG, how has that been beneficial as the Western Region ACS G6, supporting 8 base posts and stations spread across all over Southern California, the Western Region, in a highly diverse communication service portfolio?
Yes, sir. It's really been eye-opening for me. I mean, I did tactical comms for about 25 years. And then moving over to Mickey West, wait a minute, there's more, right? And how do we integrate that and support? And I think that perspective of being that guy in the sand against the thinking enemy and having the mission that Colonel Anthony just talked about has really opened my eyes of how the base and station can do even more than just a power projection, but be reach back capability at the time of need. And again, the challenge here is change management. If you don't think change management is hard in industry, it's even harder in the Marine Corps. You know why? When you say force design, people lose their minds. In the Marine Corps active duty, retired generals, right? Everybody's been paying attention, right? Force design is an emotional event. And it's because it's huge change. It's paradigm shifts across the board. But again, that's what's being forced. The enemy is forcing us to take a look at changing. And again, understanding what's at stake and knowing what that warfighter that's looking at the end. And for me, one of the things that I've always heard of and tries to motivate me every day is when I hear about no more fair fights. The Marines should never be in a fair fight. We need to put him and her in an example of advantage every time. No more fair fights. That's my motivation. Everybody up here, that's our job, is to make sure the Marines are never in a fair fight. I've got a quote from a book I want to share in terms of change. It's called Future Shock. I don't know if anybody's read that. It was written in 71, about 50-something years ago. And it said, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those that can't read or write. It'll be those that can't learn, unlearn, and relearn. That's where we're at right now. That guy wrote that 50-something odd years ago. And that's the challenge. The people that understand we have to change to be relevant. We have to unlearn. We have to have new paradigms of how we're going to accomplish this against a thinking enemy. And so I just leave it with that in terms of a mindset. And again, the Marine Corps is positioned and poised. And with your assistance, we're going to make sure those Marines go down range, and they're always going to have the advantage.
Yeah, great point, Senator Becker. Appreciate that. Hey, with that, we'll turn over to the audience for a few questions. Hey, John, good to see you.
So first of all, is this on? Good.
Yes, sir.
First of all, Colonel Stepp, thanks for a really good professional panel. Panelists, awesome comments. A couple things you said, Lieutenant Colonel Becker, seem to resonate with reframing, changing and everything. Would be interested in your thoughts on a reframe from programs of record based on here's the gear, here's the radio, versus something based on services. You tell industry what you need and what you need to accomplish, and then having a package that can do all the things you mentioned, being connected, being disconnected, using 5G, using any number of transport layers. Just be interested to in your thoughts on, because I know there's probably some folks who aren't necessarily eager to adopt that sort of model. Maybe there are some. So just interested in your thoughts on that.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I think an example of that, and we've come a long way in the last 20 to 30 years. I mean, we used to have a program was the program of record, right? So I'll use Blue Force tracking as an example. Now that function is the program of record, and who delivers within that portfolio can be multiple different products and so forth. So I think we've gotten a little bit better over a couple decades. I think there's still room to go. And again, the need for that is so necessary because of how quickly things change. And we can't be married to a single product, but we need the best in breed in whatever functionality that program of record should be supporting. So I think we've done better than we have in the past. A lot more room. Yeah. I joke that, everybody talks about, money, and all the generals and admirals are, we need more money. Well, I joke that if it weren't for that pesky congressional oversight thing, this would be easy, right? But again, that's not going away. We have to tell Congress what we intend to do and why we intend to do it. And that process can get better, but that requirement, in my opinion, is not going to go away and shouldn't go away. We should be good stewards of the taxpayers' money, and we need to articulate the requirement, the thinking enemy, and how we're going to succeed on the battlefield. So I think we've gotten better, but to your point, we need to stay with the functional program records and not just the end products.
If I may, I want to take a stab at it and pivot just a little bit. My issue isn't with the programs of record. I believe that they deliver what is asked for. There may be a time issue that I have concern with. But more to my concern and where I think we should change is our acquisitions model. Mike Anthony believes that we should no longer buy equipment for long term. Why can't I lease it? Well, I talked about the 163. It's a great radio. It does what I need. It does exactly what I asked for a two-band radio. It does great, right? Why can't I lease that? And then when I get a newer technology that comes out, I can adapt that much quicker. The real problem is what Dave Becker talked about, is a cost problem. So I am in the Marine Corps. We are on a shoestring budget. I appreciate all the money that we do have. I would love to have more, but there are realities to that. At the end of the day, our DoD budget is near $1 trillion. To be hey, let's give us $2 more trillion to do the things that we need is probably unreasonable, right? But what I will say is, how do we adapt to a different model for acquisitions? Yes, we need some things that need to be done well. In the 1st Marine Division, we do have the ACV. So if we pivot to that, we need a vehicle to get us from sea to shore and win our nation's battles when we're told to, right? The AAV did its many years, over 5 decades, right? So we need a new vehicle to keep up with modern times. So I'm okay with that POR process, that acquisitions model, that needs to win. We cannot sustain, and we do not desire to have Marines dying because of poor or faulty or anything like that, right? So they're necessary. But when I'm talking about a radio, we can improve and moving, iPhones as an example, or Android devices. There's less than a year iteration on most of those. Radios are the same way, in my opinion.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, Al, go.
Yeah, I think to expand upon that, one thing that I've seen is what's being deemed as MVP, working through Marine Corps testing activity over at MCTISA. Minimum viable product, I think, is what it stands for. Again, control group and comm squadron are working closely. I think it was one has been given over to 1st Marines to take forward. But what But what this model, this MVP is that let's forget about making sure that if I am fielding the GCSS, CAC2P software, right? And it's like, okay, here's the requirements, we've filled the requirements, here's the software requirements. Okay, it needs this many gigs of storage and processing capability. Here's the box, here's the ruggedized standard. Okay, ready, set, go, and you package it out. Well, before you know it, that unit is carrying like boxes and boxes, and this 2-person lift is turning into, you know, a 30-person working party to make sure that COC is standing up. MVP gets after it, where you have a hardware agnostic solution that is able to load different types of software through virtualization and I'm forgetting the other technology right now. But to be able to, you just have a massive, like almost 1-person lift box that you are able to throw on your software programs of record and other COTS solutions to be able to support that commander for their unclassified and classified communications. And I think that's where we need to go to, where we're not procuring hardware for hardware's sake, but we have agnostic hardware solutions, and then our requirements fall into that. So then when the procurement comes in, they're procuring to fall into that hardware standards instead of changing the hardware standards moving forward.
Yeah, and speak at the service level. So familiar with the phrase Project Dynamis? So Lieutenant Colonel Pollard is speaking to MAGTAF C2 minimum viable product. It's a small form factor, hardware agnostic, POR informing. So taking the software off the the kind of ruggedized container and moving on to a small form factor kit that can be the software can iterate, and as the storage and compute gets faster and cheaper, we can put the newest software product on that device. And there's multiple different use cases. This one is a MAGTAF C2 MVP. Lieutenant Colonel Harley and her team at MLG worked a McSen instance with a SIPR WAN, and it's all small form factor, one marine portable overhead compartment storage type of hardware. So awesome. Any other questions? Sir.
So Johnny O had the great question, so I got to follow up on it. Great one.
Yeah.
There's been some activities on divest to invest. So I was on Commandant Berger SIG for the first 2 years, and we started that, the divest to invest.
Yeah.
I know some of the MAR4s and some of the MSCs are working on that right now. So I guess to continue on this thread a little bit, so the ACV is a great platform. I absolutely agree. The ARV will be that everything below the belt line, if you will, on that thing, is going to be here for the next 30, 40 years. Everything that's above the belt line needs to be on a 3 to 5 year tech refresh cycle. Otherwise, it's going to become obsolete. Yeah. So I think it's a mixed balance. So I guess my question is, are there programs, are there efforts underway, and are there programs that you're thinking about right now that industry and others can go back to CD&I and go back to Systems Command and say, this thing needs to be on a faster tech refresh cycle? The one that comes to mind immediately is NOTAM, but I know there are others. So just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, divest to invest. NOTAM. Yeah, Mike.
So I'll go first on that. I think I have the most NOTAMs in the MEF. I'm not an anti-NOTAM person. I think the NOTAM does what it is supposed to do, and it's tied to a vehicle. So as long as I can move it, the mobility is there, I'm good with it. What I think should come to, and I think the point you're making, and that goes to Colonel Sepp's first question to us, is what new technologies can I bring to it, and what would make the NOTAM better, right? So like, if I have the NOTAM, which can give me a mesh network, right? What can give me extended range in that? Like, what can give me the ability that it becomes both in a vehicle and man portable? Like continue that mesh and like give me my bubble that moves all around. Put it up on a UAS that goes all around, because I think that's another technology that we absolutely had better embrace and make it secure and give us the functionality. if you look on, you can read on the news and see everything that's happened between Russia and Ukraine and how they're using UASs both to give them comm and to give them early warning. I think those are great technologies, right? Things that I think that are more, so I'm shifting a little bit to things that I think, so over Still Night this last go, our LARs, Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion, we had them acting as a maritime reconnaissance battalion, right? As a sensing makes sense and then connect it to the shooter, right? How do I connect those? How do I give them UASs and sea vehicles, both above and below? Like those are the newer technologies that I think we should be pivoting to. So not them as a tool, like I have no problem with it. I have the vehicles. I'm going to, as a light infantry force, I'm going to be foot mobile, but there are times that I have to be vehicle mobile. So depending on that, so the NOTAM isn't necessarily a problem per se for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, kind of speaking to leveraging the current technologies, but also posturing to integrate the new stuff. Yeah. Any other comments from the panel on divestment or areas of desired investment?
Yeah, I think one thing that I've seen in the wing specifically, the wing's alternate mission is to be the backup alt CP for the MEF. But as Lieutenant Colonel Becker has put out, a lot of that mission set is changing. The problem's changing, right? So. The problem statement or question is changing, and we need to modify accordingly. And using requirements that were developed before OIF or in the beginning of OIF is not suitable anymore. So some of my things is that maybe we don't need to completely divest in equipment, but start looking about reducement of quantities of the equipment that we have. And I'll pick on our microwave capability with our Track 170s. Okay, do we really need a mirrored amount of our TE that we've been operating for the past 20 years, or can we lower that amount of equipment to be able to invest in either R&D or different capabilities or enhanced capabilities moving forward? And then what that also does is per our rigid structure, is that it also potentially frees up manpower. So instead of tying those 0627s to those NGTs, we can redesignate them for maybe different MOSs in which we need to focus on. I'm not saying we get rid of all the SATCOM operators and microwave operators, but to be able to make them into 21s, 31s or 71s, and maybe focus on the networking or the data, or making sure the data flow is where it needs to be, is just one point of opinion here.
Yeah, and kind of as the operational challenge is changing and the comms implementation is changing, and like the occupational specialties need to change as well. Yeah, great point.
Safe round on that one.
Yeah.
I do need industry to not provide proprietary connectors, cables, and end things to us. Like, you're killing me. Like, if I buy a radio, I got to spend nearly $8,000 to get all of the cabling to go with it. Like, I think it should be one standard. So I think maybe we need to get some congressional mandates that say you will have a USB-C connector for everything that comes to us. I'm joking there. But my point is, if non-proprietary, it's got to, like, that's going to help with our interoperability. Like, that is a critical shortfall. So if I have a 163 and I want to use a Peloton headset, like, all of the cabling, like, that's killing us. Like, I buy less radios when I have more things I got to buy with it because I can't use it. So, like, that's probably the other big thing. Oh.
Thanks, Colonel Anthony. I think we have time for one or two more questions. Sir.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Clay Coppernall. So when we're talking about iterating technology and continuing to adapt to theater-specific requirements, In a potential model where there is a hardware as a service solution, do you believe that responsibility lies with the Marine Corps or with each of the DoD entities, or is that more something that would more efficiently align with a TSOC or a COCOM, whereas units fall in and have to gain access to a network specific to something like the Indo-PACOM mission network or the JFN? Is it something where the Marine Corps should be establishing those networking capabilities through their own programs of record, or is it more of a joint interoperability capability?
I'll start out on that one. I would say the joint interoperability is one of our biggest needs, and it's where we're probably farthest away. JTFs should have the requirement. The Marine Corps is going to fight our formations we deploy as part of JTFs, right? The authority to do what we do. Otherwise, left to that bang is training, right? And we need to, we've all heard it, we need to train like we fight. I think we're way away from that right now in terms of training like a part of a JTF. That's a challenge. We're challenged to have TO&E for things for, as we call them, second and third networks. So we're training with what we have internally, and then we have to surge to the JTF piece, right? And that's counterproductive in my opinion. We need to be more interoperable, not just within our own service, but with other services and with other coalition and mission partners. So I think that is where we need to mature more, and it's definitely a necessity. It's not a luxury. So, Mike?
Yeah, having served at the MAR4 level and in a joint environment, I believe that services should retain their train, man, and equip Title X responsibilities. I think the COCOMs, formerly known as Geographical Combatant Commands, like they should identify because they know their region best. So that requirement's never going to change. To Dave Becker's point about interoperability, I think that also should be required. But I think where we can do best at is saying, hey, what is the common goal? What is the common feature? For example, we have COCOMs right now that are telling us this is our COP tool. And I think the services are like realizing, like, okay, yes, we can get on board with that. We can do that, and we will. And I think that helps migrate, and that brings us from 20th century or 19th century C2 to a 21st century 2. So I think to your point, I'm good with how the COCOMs are informing the services on what they should train, man, and equip to. I think we're moving in the right direction.
Thanks, Colonel Anthony. Clay, I would add one thing. So the planning guidance we're all operating under, per the Commandant's direction, is any sensor, any shooter. And that be any sensor, any shooter, like tri-MEF solution, 1MEF, 3MEF, 2MEF, when we come together as an element of the joint force. Any sensor, any shooter, the fleet integrated with the Navy, so our primary joint partner. Any sensor, any shooter in the joint force, so be it IMN, JFN, joint solution, particularly for 1MEF and the Indo-PACOM AOR. And then obviously we want to work with in close partnership with our allies and coalition partners. So in some cases, they have capacities we lack or we have capacities they need. And the C4 modernization efforts, bringing that together, is going to unify those capabilities. And the last thing I would say on tech integration, what the FMF wants to do is to enable the Corps to be the JTAC of the joint force. So tech integration we're making is to provide that capability to the joint force commander and our assigned COCOM. For us specifically, it's got a focus in the Western Pacific. Thanks for your question, Clay. It's great. Yeah. I think we have time for one more.
Yeah. Hello, thank you. Gidja Fuentes, I'm writing for USNI News. Lieutenant Colonel Paulo, you mentioned the Battle of Catan exercises and some of the challenges with the infrastructure in the Western Pacific. As you're looking ahead for this year with some of the exercises that include the next iteration of Battle of Catan and others, are there going to be some solutions or some concepts that you're going to be testing out? Is there some new things that Marines will be able to get their hands on to start to chase after some of these problems? both to kind of ensure that, you have those connectivities and that continuation of communications, in those, in places where the infrastructure is pretty lacking. Anything that you're looking ahead to see and to learn in this coming year through Balcatan or other, Marine Corps or larger exercises this year throughout the MEF?
Thank you. I appreciate your question. So Balcatan is a one MEF led exercise, but there will be a lot of division, wing, and logistics group units operating, not just with Balcatan, but for follow-on exercises that we have the opportunity working with our great partners, the Philippines. So like I said, we have a 365 mission there, and so working with DISAPAC to get DoD-funded fiber circuits into the Philippines is gained traction, and that's something that I've been involved with working for several years now, and starting to see that to fruition. So I'm looking forward to that coming hopefully this upcoming year, to be able to add redundancy and robustness into the Luzon island. But moving forward, our key experimentation that we'll be doing out there will be led by our multi-air domain, multi-all domain operations center, the MAOC. Okay, and that will be operating in Luzon in support of the MEF JTS certification during Balcatan, and they will be deploying several technologies, and I can definitely put you in a good point of contact to get someone to talk about it better than I can.
Thanks, Alan. Appreciate that. Hey, Jason, how's it going?
Almost there. Sorry, how's it going?
Yeah.
Good morning, Colonel Stepp. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here today. Sienna, represents Sienna. My team's here as well. So one of the things as we see as we go around the Indo-PACOM AOR for my team and I is in talking with the various commands, we're seeing that education and information as to what comms platforms are actually available. And I would want to stipulate, we're at the transport, so we're at that photonic layer, that the layer is one thing. So Colonel Pollard, you kind of mentioned some of your challenges. I'm like, that shouldn't be happening. That probably tells me that's at a different layer. There's a stovepipe there somewhere. So we can talk a little bit later on that one. But from your perspectives, do you see information sharing and closer cooperation between DISA, the Navy, the Marine Corps, and the Army to be advantageous? And kind of caveat that with one of the things that for years we kind of would always have a mantra from my background was interop, not integrate. And so now we're starting to see is like in JTS, it's like we need to be integratable, especially when we start talking about partners, Five Eyes, Mutual Defense Treaty Nations, et cetera. We talk about the Philippines, we talk about the Japanese. It's pipes are coming in, we need data flow and data sharing. It might be able to interop operationally on the battle space, but showing their data is not integratable. How do you feel about that? And then the communication to potentially policy changes on that.
Jason, I can up on the first part on DISA sharing. So, as we're posturing west of the international date line and getting persistence there, we want robust infrastructure. Some of the positions are facilitated by just like RF. We want to get like a higher bandwidth means in there because right now maybe it's a team, tomorrow it may be the MEF command element or the GIFLIC. One of the MSC command elements. But on information sharing with DISA, we super close partnership. I mean, we have a secret agent. The commanding officer of DISAPAC is Colonel Jared Venida, fellow green suitor. And so any movements we're making in the Pacific are tightly coordinated with DISAPAC because they're posturing the joint force just like we're posturing as a Marine component inside the joint force. So a lot of close integrated effort there, talk regularly, and frankly, we don't want to do anything without the Joint Forces oversight, supervision, and support. So with that, I'll turn over to you guys on the relationship with DISA, transport, posturing west of the IDL.
Yeah, just to talk about the transport and talking about the Army node that was established in the Philippines first, is that's not the only one in the Indo-Pacific. And so what we're able to do is leverage that infrastructure that they have built out throughout the Pacific and working with USERPAC and MAR4PAC and One MEF is that we started integrating a fleet-produced, now program of record called the McTIG, the Marine Corps Tactical Grid, leveraging Blackboard technology to be able to tie into that. So now we are able to have points of presence via USERPAC communications infrastructure that we didn't have access to in the past. So it's creating that redundancy in the robustness. I think once those pathways are now that are opened up and we have that redundancy that Colonel Stepp is talking about, our main pathway that we need to get back to is Hawaii. With the COCOM commander and then the subordinate commanders that are operating that have those combat systems and federating that information for decisions to be made. And I feel confident, but maybe that's not a feeling that I should have, that our information is integrating correctly. But it's when the services are not on the same page of what that technology is become an issue. TBMCS, to be able to create the air tasking order within aviation forces. Marine Corps and the Air Force, or at least in this specific theater, are not 100% on the same page right now, and so that's caused some friction for us. It can be overcome, but I think we still have some work to be able to do it, and that's just one example.
Hey, we're at time, but we look forward to continuing the discussion. Please join me in thanking our panel for the insights and contributions. Appreciate you all for attending today's discussion. I'll say One MEF is ready because of the talent and skill we have and the leadership of the team here on the panel today. So thank you all for coming. We look forward to talking more.